We all know that kids can come up with very tricky questions as they grow up. And sometimes those questions are about the mysteries of life and spirituality. So if you are coming from one of the great religious traditions of the world, you may already have answers for those. But what if you don't? What if you consider yourself spiritual but not religious? How do you start to answer these questions that your children come up with around death, life, God, and the universe, and how do you answer them? That's a little bit of what we're going over in this video. We're going to talk about 4 different ways that you can raise more spiritually conscious kids. Hey everybody, Leslie Huddart here. I am a healer and spiritual guide, and one of my favorite things to do is talk about ways to bring spirituality more into your everyday life. And this is very applicable when you have children, are raising children, and are not necessarily part of a religious tradition that answers some of these big questions. So what I'd like to talk about in this lesson is 4 things that you can do to sort of prepare yourself and infuse spirituality in a way that helps your children create their own spiritual framework for their lives. Number 1 is, as the parent and as the family, to really personify the great mystery. What this means is choose a face of the divine that you feel comfortable with. It might be God, or it might be universe, or it might be nature with a capital N. It might be the Great Spirit. It might be Mother Earth. It could be the Divine Mother or the Divine Father. So, well, you hear me say in other videos, and I really drive this home in our practical spirituality training, which really helps you have your own foundation of a bona fide spiritual practice outside of religious tradition. If you're interested in that, I'm doing taking a group through live this fall, so check out those links below. But one of the things that's challenging is you have to have a place to start. So one of the reasons why we need to personify the divine in some way, to have a figurehead for how we interface with this aspect of reality, is that in a way, the divine is immeasurable. It would blow up our little minds to really understand and conceptualize the greatness of it. So most world traditions figure out a face of that interaction that allows our human minds to sort of create a personalized relationship with this greater force. So number 1 is to personify and decide how you're going to talk about this greater, wider force, and knowing what that means to you. Number 2 is to add rituals to your daily life. The most important or easiest places to start are generally the bookends of the day, when you wake up in the morning, when you go to sleep, and then ideally, often when you're eating. So if you don't know what to do, or you don't have any particular spiritual practices that you feel aligned with, gratitude is a great place to start. You'll notice that saying gratitude for things is very close to and a good vibe of connecting with the heart, outside of necessarily it being a Judeo-Christian grace or praying in those ways. So you could at a meal say something like, thank you for this food, thank you for all the people that prepared it, thankful for different things of different people in the family that have happened, something for the day. So gratitude at meal times is a great practice and helps us create more mindfulness when we're consuming food, and ultimately encourages digestion. At the bookends of the day, some ideas for morning, you can do things like greeting the sun. You can go outside together and face east and do a little bow to the sun. You can be thankful to the sun. You can do your intention for the day. You can connect with nature in a way and see how the divine essence is flowing through that. So doing these little things that are movement with our bodies, like bowing and being outside and facing a certain direction, are very helpful, as well as really grounded in ancient spiritual science. The places like traditions like feng shui and Ayurveda really have a lot of the houses facing in eastern facing ways, because that is the direction that the sun is rising. So there is ancient wisdom in these things that you can infuse into your family and child's daily practice. At night, you can think about and have gratitude for different things that happened in the day. You can think about different people in your family and sort of connect with them in a heartfelt way, holding them in your heart. A side note, energetically, it's always helpful to really in an energetic way, if we're holding other people, we always want to be holding them in our heart space, which is more of the divine space, versus sort of like holding them in our body, which is not really an appropriate energetic way and kind of creates energetic drain. So it's always a good thing to say that we're holding people in our hearts, because that's more like the great mysteries real estate inside of us in an energetic way. So you can hold different people in the family in your heart, feel grateful, celebrate grateful things that happen in the day. This is also a great way to help kids in a mental way reframe and focus on what they're grateful for, which will serve them as a lifelong skill. The next thing, number 3, is to think about how and prepare a little bit how you want to answer some of these big questions in life. Namely, what happens when you die? Why do people do bad things? And like, where do babies come from? Growing up in my family, I'm the oldest of all of the grandchildren. I had a lot of younger cousins growing up. And I remember the example of 2 different cousins from 2 different families with 2 very different mothers. And somehow we got into the story of, where do babies come from? How do babies get born? And the one cousin from her family, her mom sort of got more of a Christian viewpoint of, when God decides you're ready, he changes your body and the baby comes out and is born. And then another cousin got the story in her house that what happens when a mommy has a baby is she goes to the hospital, they give you some medicine to go to sleep, they cut her across her belly, and then they take the belly out. They take the baby out. So that was quite a different 2 versions of stories that will lead ultimately, intentionally or not, to different worldviews in that child's life. Now, all of these things, there's no absolute right or wrong with anything in spirituality as well. We want to judge by results. And so as you think about what you want to create for your family and children, it's good to pre-think a little bit about how you will answer these questions and what feels comfortable to you. And remember that you can always do a comeback card when your child has these questions. It's not the easiest, but if you really feel stuck or you feel triggered yourself by the own question, you can always say, hey, that's a really good question. And I want to do a little thinking, and then let's talk about that, and then give them an actual time frame where you do come back. It's not just a way to pass and avoid answering these questions. That creates a little bit of a suppression energy, but coming back and actually bringing up the conversation again and talking about it in a way still creates that cycle of being able to field and work on those things in yourself while also supporting your kiddos. And the last point, number 4, tips and ideas, are just stories. Stories are a great way to learn. Now, I've been looking online. I'll put a link below to one of the books that I found that is really quite lovely and has a variety of stories from across the world, spiritual traditions that hint on different sort of spiritual principles and expose children in thoughtful, mindful ways to different ways of being and interacting with the divine. The last thing that I'll add in as a bonus is start to, as you feel comfortable, number 5, when you've already done the number 1 of personifying the great mystery and telling stories about it and bringing that into your daily life, you can start, advanced move in number 5, to start connecting this with your child experience. Use their experience of awe and gratitude and also challenge and difficulty to start to connect that in to what you are creating as the greater framework of why we're here, what the organizing principle of the universe is, what relationship it has with us, and all of those things. So number 5 is start to use either challenging or really celebratory moments in life of being excited about something in nature, and then you reflecting of like, wow, this is how nature really is connected with us. Nature is amazing. It takes care of us. It gives us food and it gives us comfort and it helps us to feel more relaxed. We can really connect and feel the energy of nature with also challenges, explaining the difficult parts of life, whether it's losing a soccer game or a toy getting lost, that sometimes things are very hard, but we can remember that the Divine Mother is always with us in our hearts, that her love is really the most important. So even though it feels sad when we lose something or when a friend hurts our feelings, that we have this inner friend in our hearts of the Divine Mother or the Divine Father who is always with with us and caring for us. So as you start to connect these for your child in different ways, you help them also learn to regulate themselves in the wider picture. I hope this is helpful. If you have other tips, please leave them below. These are ideas to get you started. And if you are looking to formulate and really land in your own practical spirituality, I invite you to check out my practical spirituality training. It's really a wonderful, fun time together where we go deep, not just in the mind, but also in experientials of how to go deeper in your system. And we debunk a lot of dogma and rituals around new aginess or meditation and help you find the landing place of a foundation where you feel really connected with what is and align with ancient spiritual principles. This is Leslie Huddart. I am rooting for you. Remember, the inner game, the inner world is what really creates our outer world. You are a soul with a body and you deserve great things. I'll see you next time.